And
Yeah.
did you get to see the video I did on the police the other day?
No, I didn't see that one.
Okay, so there's a segment where I'm kind of talking about what happened is so especially coming into the 1800s, you had the police forces were forming, and one of the ways you had power because the police at that time did not have a unified city police system. It was precinct police, and they only worked in their precinct and no place else. And it was entirely political. Whoever the precinct ward boss uh, was in charge of hiring, determining who went in there. And so the thing is every group had a natural desire. Like, so if you were Polish, you'd go, oh, let's get all the Poles into this precinct here so that we have the political power so that we can be the ward boss and we can control the police and we can make it work for our people, and other people who are coming in to mess with us are going to have a harder time. So there was a motivation there both to help their fellow man but to also build political strength for their subgroup. And
Okay.
It seemed to work pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, isn't that basically how the Irish kind of wormed their way into America, into better life in America?
Yeah, they seized control of their precincts by sheer force of population. That's why there's such a meme of the Irish policeman that you see in older TV and movies, because that was that's where they came to rest with their political power. So, did you? This is the one. Okay, in terms of so population implosion, the place I did not realize was another issue was South Korea. Did you hear that one? That's one I don't remember him talking about.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Here's another thing, though, that I think is important. And Peterson points this out as well, is that you don't actually have to have a weird conspiracy for this stuff to happen. It just a large part of this is, hey, we decided to say that it's cool for women to join the workforce in any capacity that they want to. And when you do that, people move to cities. When people move to cities, they can't afford to have multiple children. So they don't. They maybe have two, max. Probably not, though. Maybe one, if any. And it just, and it's also very difficult to simultaneously say, yes, everybody should be working all of these different types of jobs, and also we need you to have babies.
Yeah.
It's a really, I think he was talking about Sweden has a very generous thing where for your first pregnancy, you get 2 years. And the second, you get an additional 2 years. And the third, I think 3, I don't know. But it's like over 6 years. And you can just have baby after baby if you want to. And the result of that, which makes Sweden's a bit embarrassed, is that employers don't want to hire young women who have recently got married.
Yeah.
They just don't, because it's too good. The incentive's great, but it's not great if you're trying to promote a certain view.
Yeah, and part of that whole two parents working and not having children is also a function of tax base. If you can't afford, you literally can't afford to have a child, maybe two. I mean, these big families, I don't know how they pull it off. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, I look at the issues of just dealing with 2 children, and I can't imagine what it would be like dealing with 3, 4, or 5. But I imagine that's one of I guess that's one of those things where you just the workload just slowly builds up and you don't notice. It's a variation of the boiling frog.
Oh man, I was just thinking about that the Stranger Things episode where they go to the kid's girlfriend's house and it's a Mormon family, and they like literally don't know where any. There's so many children that, and Dad just has this look of like utter confusion all the time. But it was actually very. They weren't mean to the Mormons or anything else. It was just funny.
Well, you can't be mean to the Mormons.
No, you can't be mean to the Scientologists.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
Unless you have a strong legal team.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they have a strong program of breeding, so I don't think we have to worry too much from that sector.
No. But and that's the other thing. Gen X hasn't had a lot of kids. Zoomers aren't much bigger than Gen X, and they're not. I mean, I know the Zoomers that I know through my daughter, and they're not. No one's saying, "I just can't wait to have a big family."
Mm-hmm.
I've heard zero of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if some of this stuff's going to start becoming apparent, where it's going to be hard. I mean, okay, is it going to become apparent enough where it's going to be hard for them to, hard for the overpopulation crowd to keep dazzling people with BS, to where you're going to actually see the things happening, and it's going to be easy enough for one side to say no, that's because the population's dropping. We can't continue going forward like this. I can fully understand. Like I said, economically, it's hard to have more than 2 children. And I can see morally, I mean, if you really believe that the world is being destroyed by overpopulation, I mean, you'd be morally repugnant to have a child. Much you may have. I understand their reasoning. I think they're functioning off of bad information. So the question is at some point, does it become so readily apparent that they realize that, we're functioning off of bad information here? And they actually consider like, okay, no, we need to we need to at least do 1 or 2 of them to at least stay stable, and maybe rethink the whole idea of a 3rd child.
Yeah, it's just how many years does that take for people to recognize that?
Yeah, I know. Does it happen too late?
Yeah, like if it happens in a few years, it's not too bad, but every year kids are not being born, then cut off.
Mm-hmm.
You get that's something you can't go back in time and convince people to have babies. And having babies right now doesn't solve some problems that are already set in motion 30 years ago or
Right.
40 years ago. So yeah, I mean, eventually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Will it be too late? So here's a question. One of the things he was talking about was, obviously we were talking about that he's a neoliberal, so he likes the current order. And one of the things he's very thrilled about is the idea that essentially the United States has absolute maritime supremacy, and essentially the promise the U.S. made to the world following World War II is free trade will happen everywhere. The sea lanes will be open no matter what, and that's the one guarantee you're getting out of us, is that the sea lanes will be absolutely open forever. And so one of his big concerns is that the focus of the U.S. Navy has been shifting away from general maritime operations to land attack. Basically getting rid of a lot of the general utility ships and replacing handfuls of utility ships with a single big nuclear carrier. Now, have you heard? Because I've listened to a couple of the interviews he's done with other people, but I did not hear him kind of expound upon how does that somehow. Do we reach some kind of point of no return where you can't turn the Navy around? What prevents us, the United States, from reimposing some variation of Pax Americana on free trade around the world.
It's funny because, and he talks about this very disdainfully, but he talks about the general populist movements of America,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, but he says, and he doesn't like this, but he's like, Americans are losing their taste for globalism in various ways.
Mm.
There are people on the left that have their reasons, and people on the right that have their reasons. And because of that, it's like, could America technically do it? Yes, like it's a work feasible thing, but it's his point of view is this is a cultural thing where, like,
so we're losing the will is what he's saying.
Yeah,
okay.
He's like, yeah, if we were the kind of Americans I want, this would keep going, but apparently everybody doesn't want to do that anymore. That doesn't want to play world police, doesn't want to, do all this.
No, that makes sense.
Which is weird because from my point of view, that's not happening nearly quick enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're the kind of person he doesn't want influencing policy. Yeah. Because I agree. I think the pendulum for globalism has swung as far as it's going to swing, and I think it's getting ready to swing back. Hopefully not with a bright flash of light and a burst of radiation.
I'm not in a great place for that.
Well, I don't see... Gosh. And this just falls into something we were talking about before. It's like, we're seeing all these catastrophic cultural failures going on around us. And it's all these people who are, started off like, how could we possibly fail doing this? Because, we never fail. This is an unbeatable concept. And that same contagion of mindset is in our foreign policy establishment. And these are the same guys who are driving what's going on in Ukraine with Russia. And, I didn't think we would push it to the point where Russia would actually cross the borders. That surprised the heck out of me. So, that same, and unfortunately, I'm like going, well, I can't see a situation, where they decide to set off a tactical nuke and just, bollocks things up to extremes. But it's like, yeah, it could happen. And you're like, okay, well, at least we're not so stupid that we, escalated up to a general exchange. We're not that stupid, are we? It's like, yeah, maybe we are.
Maybe.
I mean, that's really bad. I mean, here I went through, because I was at the absolute alert age, going through the absolute height of the Cold War, where it really looked like things might happen. And I would really love to tell you at this point that I felt a lot more afraid back then than I do now, but I'm not. It's, at least back then, the people running things put on the veneer of confidence where you went, oh, those guys know exactly what they're doing. Even if they had no clue, they made you believe it. It's hard to find that kind of belief anymore looking at the people running things.